I remember the day I fell in love, sunlight pouring through her parents' summer place on Greywater Bay, my reflection blinking back from glossy wood floors. I came from a small house that smelled like warm bread and fabric softener. She belonged to a world of black cars with drivers, charity balls, and acquaintances who smiled while measuring you. That day, none of it mattered. Her laugh rang bright, her eyes shone, her plans felt endless. I believed love could span any divide. "Can you stay longer?" she asked as we sat on a park bench by her family's manor in Ashfield, her childhood initials scratched into the rail. This was before the engagement, before money turned simple things heavy. Her father, Victor, built his name in property deals. Her mother, Mara, called M by friends, ran luncheons and hopped to Paris for shopping trips. Meanwhile, I came from a quiet block where neighbors chatted through chain link and passed plates over fences. My dad had retired from teaching. My mom sold pastries 2 days a week. We had no frills, but we had enough, which her circle would never accept. "I have an early shift at the sports shop," I told her. She pouted and leaned on my shoulder. "I just hate when you go." Her warmth made the rest blur. I stopped caring about scuffed sneakers and last year's jeans. I thought she loved me without conditions. Our romance climbed, and so did my awareness of her parents. Mara could still a room with a single lifted brow. Victor, my future father-in-law, took up space without being tall. Offhand comments from him landed like warnings. They tolerated me because she asked them to, while making sure I knew a middle-class guy was a poor fit in their lineup. "Congratulations," Victor said, gripping my hand like it was a contract, the night we announced the engagement. "We are happy for you both." "Thank you, sir," I said. "Call me Victor," he answered. "We will see how this works out." The phrase looped in my head. "We will see how this works out." A small chill settled, one I tried to drown out by staring at my fiancé's brilliant smile. Deep down, I knew they saw me as a trespasser. Days later, we visited to pick a wedding date. Mara and Victor seated us at a shining mahogany table. Victor slid a folder across the surface. "I have something for you to sign," he said. Inside lay a prenuptial agreement. It locked in that any inheritance or trust money from her side, any family properties or businesses or large gifts would remain hers alone. It also said that any major assets gained during our marriage would be marital property, including lotteries and game show prizes. The windfall sections were oddly precise, particularly under the heading Financial Windfalls and Gains. It read like they had targeted jackpot scenarios by name. My own name dotted the text in formal language. "The prospective spouse consents to..." "Is this required?" I asked. "Standard policy for established families," Mara said, voice smooth. "You understand." I looked to my fiancée. She stood a little apart, unreadable. "It is not a big deal," she said. "My parents want to guard family holdings. It will not change us. I should have argued. I was headlong in love and eager to keep calm waters. I told myself that if I truly cared, a signature was nothing. I put pen to paper, binding myself to clauses I only half grasped. Victor watched with a small victorious curve of his lips. "Welcome to the family," he said. 6 months later, we threw a lakeside wedding that glowed on camera. My parents looked stunned by the spectacle. Imported blooms, 5 layers of cake, a live orchestra. My father wore his best suit and still looked like he wished for a back porch. Distant relatives asked over and over how I had met her. The photos showed sunlight and laughter. She was radiant in lace. I felt 10 feet tall, as if love could overrule class and money. We moved into a condo Victor called a gift. In truth, he covered the down payment, and I was handed the monthly mortgage. He did not call it an ultimatum. "You will handle the monthly bills, right, son?" he said. I did, trying to ignore the feeling that I was paying rent in a place he still owned in spirit. The first years brought typical arguments over money and interference. My in-laws arrived without warning, dropping off furniture that clashed, or hiring their decorator to rearrange our living room. I swallowed irritation when my wife waved off my objections. "They are helping," she said. I noticed our life began to look like an extension of their taste. I told myself every couple manages in-law friction. We would navigate it. One afternoon at work, my wife called, voice trembling with excitement. "You will not believe this," she said. "I just won the lottery." My grip slipped on the phone. Wait, what? It is real. 9 million. I grabbed a ticket on a whim and the numbers hit. "That is unbelievable," I said. I pictured paying off the place, taking a breath for once, helping my parents, buying a home not tied to Victor, maybe starting my own shop. I shook with giddy relief. Life would turn. Then the shine dulled. My wife went guarded about the money. She insisted on secrecy, especially from my family. She said she was meeting attorneys I had never heard of. She said it was necessary for claiming the prize correctly. "Should I come?" I asked. She shook her head. "These lawyers work with big estates. You would hate it. I will brief you after." It stung. For weeks, I felt pushed to the curb. Each time I asked how the payout would be managed, whether we would clear the condo loan, she brushed me off or said it was complicated. One gray afternoon, I came home after a double shift, dead on my feet. I opened the door to find my wife and her Aunt Nora pulling things from drawers and dropping them into boxes. "What is happening?" I asked. My wife straightened, jaw tight. "I am filing for divorce," she said. "Pack your things." "I want you out tonight." My chest dropped. "What are you saying?" Aunt Nora, tall and hawk-eyed, scanned me like I was an invoice. "The condo is in her name, financed by her father. You have no right to stay." I could not sort the shock. The woman who just won millions was throwing me out. "Please, can we talk?" I said. My wife pressed her lips thin. "My attorney will contact you. Leave now, or we call security." I felt heat in my throat. I had been paying half the mortgage for years, but she acted like I was a squatter. I grabbed a few clothes and a toothbrush and walked out. My life tilted off its axis in minutes. I drove to my parents' house shaking. My father opened the door and took in the duffel and the look on my face. "What happened?" he asked. "She won the lottery, filed for divorce, and kicked me out," I said. My mother gasped, hands to her mouth. My father's eyes hardened. He stepped aside. That night, my mother called them cruel and snobbish. My father kept his anger low and focused on next steps. "You need a lawyer," he said. "We need to see how the prenup lands." I buried my face in my hands. That is the trouble. Her parents insisted on it. I am probably walking away with nothing. He paused. "We do not know that yet. We will find out." 2 days later, I sat in a modest office while blinds cut shadows across the desk of my father's old friend, Mr. Bennett, who practiced family law. I slid him the prenup and explained how Victor and Mara had pushed it, how it fenced off her family assets. He flipped through and gave a small chuckle. "They hurt their own case," he said. Hope flickered. "How?" He tapped a paragraph. "They protected inherited funds, trusts, and family gifts as separate property. But they also stated that any windfall during marriage is marital property. That covers lottery prizes unless the contract excludes them." I stared. "They wrote that?" He nodded. "They focused so hard on blocking you from family money, they forgot to exclude lottery gains. Unless a court reads this in some odd way, you are entitled to a significant share." Relief and fury crashed together. They tried to erase me. I was not helpless. That week, I heard she was not celebrating alone. A mutual acquaintance mentioned seeing her with an old co-worker named Ethan. He used to sit near her at a marketing firm, and they had reconnected right around the win. My mother asked if I thought she had been cheating. I swallowed. "I do not know. It looks like it." I pictured her, once reserved, now traveling with an ex-colleague and a new bank account. Maybe that was why I was being pushed out. I filed the thought away. I was already reeling. I needed facts before starting a separate fire. Victor made his position clear within days. A blocked number lit my phone. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Listen," he said with slow contempt. "You will never touch that money. You are a nobody. I will make sure you end with zero." "Actually," I said, working to keep my voice steady, The prenup says otherwise, he laughed. You think that matters? I have lawyers and know every judge in this city. You will drown in fees. Back off. I hung up with shaking hands. Mr. Bennet had warned me about intimidation. It had begun. My father's advice repeated. Write everything down. I typed a summary of the call, sent it to my attorney, and saved the voicemail. 2 days later, Mara approached me outside my parents' house in a tailored coat and a perfect twist of hair. Her eyes were hard. I have a proposal, she said, checking the street. What is it? She handed me a sheet listing a dollar amount that did not even cover half of what I had paid on the condo. Take this and walk away, she said. It is more than you deserve. I laughed without humor. You cannot be serious. Her brow folded. You are from a modest background. This is generous for a man like you. Why drag us to court? I tore the paper. No, we will let the judge decide. She scoffed and walked to her car. Ungrateful, she said, and the engine took her out of sight. Meanwhile, rumors about Ethan kept stacking. At a coffee shop, I ran into Lila, a mutual friend. Are you two separated? She asked softly. I saw your wife with Ethan at a high-end place. They looked close. My stomach nodded. Probably just friends, I said. Lila sighed. They were holding hands. The floor dropped. She had likely stepped out, and the windfall gave her the push to end it. I kept it to myself and did not make a scene. Mr. Bennet filed a motion to freeze the funds. Victor's attorneys tried to block it and failed. We pursued a contested divorce and pointed to the prenup's windfall clause. I had contributed from day one. At a preliminary hearing, I saw my wife for the first time in weeks. She arrived with her parents and 2 lawyers, face distant, eyes fixed on anything but me. Afterward, I stepped forward. She paused, arms crossed. How long? I asked quietly. Her eyes narrowed. What do you mean? How long with Ethan? Color rose in her cheeks. That is none of your concern. So you were with him while I worked doubles, I said, my voice shaking. She glanced at Victor. Then she leaned in. You have no idea what it felt like to be smothered by your mediocrity. Ethan understands me. He is successful and interesting. I was tired of waiting for you to catch up. My mouth went dry. So I was a rung on a ladder. She lifted her chin. You do not belong in my world. Do not expect me to walk away empty-handed, I said. You and your parents drew first blood. Her eyes hardened. War. Fine. See you in court. She turned and walked back to them. Pain twisted like wire under my ribs. Victor then tried to rattle me at work. He called my boss, who owned the sports store, and hinted that keeping me could hurt a possible expansion. My boss, who had known me since high school, told him to take a hike. Soon after, my wife texted, You cannot keep leeching off decent people. Grow up. My father is done being polite. I saved the message and sent it to Mr. Bennet. I refused to argue by phone. My father's rule held. Record everything. Do not sink to their level. Weeks crawled. Stress chewed at me. The law, at least, stood where we needed it. Mr. Bennet highlighted the exact language. All financial windfalls acquired during the period of marriage, including monetary prizes, lottery winnings, and game show prizes, are marital property subject to equitable distribution unless specifically excluded within this document. They had carefully walled off inheritance, trusts, and family gifts, and never carved out lottery prizes. Their narrow focus opened a door they did not see. Talk about Ethan spread like sparks on dry grass. Clubs. Hotels. Expensive restaurants. My mother asked if we should use the affair as leverage. Mr. Bennet shook his head. Our state handles divorce without assigning fault. Her cheating does not guarantee a larger share. The prenup is the keystone. That is enough. I understood. It was not about revenge. It was about refusing to be bullied into nothing. The final hearing approached under a sky the color of slate. I put on my best charcoal suit. My mother straightened my tie. We believe in you, she whispered. Outside the courthouse, I met Mr. Bennet. We nodded. My parents stayed a step behind. The lobby buzzed with attorneys and clerks calling names. I spotted my wife in a fitted blazer and skirt. Victor stood behind her with arms folded. Mara whispered in her ear and cut me a look like a blade. 4 attorneys shuffled papers and compared notes around them. My wife glanced at me with open disdain and looked away like flicking off a switch. "Come on," Mr. Bennett said. "Time to go in." The courtroom felt colder than the lobby. We sat at one table. They spread across the other. The bailiff called the room to order, and the judge, a woman in her 50s with silver in her hair, took the bench. "We are here to determine equitable distribution of marital assets in this divorce," she said after reading our names. "My wife's lead attorney claimed the ticket had been bought independently with her personal funds. He said it was never meant to be shared." Mr. Bennett rose, voice steady. "With respect, Your Honor, bank records show she used a joint debit card bearing both names to buy the ticket. The prenuptial agreement explicitly includes lottery winnings as marital assets." The judge raised a brow and requested the documents. Victor's jaw tightened. When my wife finally spoke, her voice held an edge. "I did not mean to cheat him. My parents worried about opportunists. Things got out of hand. I'm sorry if it felt abrupt." Felt abrupt was a polite phrase for tossing me into the street. I kept my face still. The judge peered over her glasses, not moved. Her father's lawyer tried a different angle. He painted me as a burden. "Your Honor, this man contributed little. He relied on my client's father's generous down payment. He freeloaded on family wealth. He has no rightful claim." The word cut. Mr. Bennett answered with receipts for mortgage payments, utilities, groceries. My client paid thousands. He did not freeload. He contributed steadily from the start. Hours passed in a rhythm of claim and counter. The air buzzed with static. My wife's gaze sharpened to hate. I could feel her parents' glare between my shoulder blades. By late afternoon, the judge tapped her gavel lightly. "Quiet," she said. Papers stopped rustling. She picked up the prenuptial agreement and read a line again with a small twist to her lips. "The language makes clear that any financial windfall during the marriage is marital property subject to equitable distribution. There is no ambiguity. The winnings are a shared asset." The room went still. Victor set his jaw. Color drained from my wife's face. The judge continued. "You also evicted your spouse from the condominium without formal notice or due process despite his financial contributions. That conduct was unkind and has relevance to fairness." Mr. Bennett's mouth twitched before he hit it. Her next words settled everything. "The winnings will be split equitably with a substantial portion to the petitioner." She looked my way. "The petitioner is also entitled to reimbursement for mortgage, utilities, and other marital expenses he covered." It was what we had worked for. Relief surged. I kept my expression even. The judge ended with a firm statement. "We will reconvene if needed for exact figures. That is my ruling." Court adjourned. The gavel fell. The bailiff called all rise. We stood. My knees felt loose. The fight was essentially over. The courthouse stirred with low voices. A few local reporters craned to see. Victor strode up, face red. "This is not over," he hissed. "We can still appeal." I straightened and let both anger and relief sit together. "It is over," I said. The judge decided. My wife stood off to the side, hugging herself, tears bright with fury. Mara glowered and whispered hard at her. Mr. Bennett touched my sleeve. "We should go. Let them have their scene." Before I could move, my wife lunged. Her face twisted. A raw sound tore out of her. "You worthless scum!" she shouted. "You ruined me!" She swung her purse toward my shoulder. I ducked and felt her nails catch my sleeve. The bailiff and a guard rushed in. "Ma'am, step back," the bailiff said. Victor barked at her to stop, more shocked than helpful. She shook with rage. "You think you won?" she screamed. "You are a parasite who tricked everyone. You disgusting liar!" My pulse thudded. I had never seen her like this. My mother gasped across the aisle. Mr. Bennett edged between us with his arm slightly raised. A guard caught my wife's arm. "Calm down or we will remove you," he warned. "Let go," she yelled. "He is stealing my money. How can you allow this?" "Do you know who my father is?" The guard tightened his hold and guided her away. "Enough," he said. "Court is done. No violence here." Her attorney hurried forward with his hands up, but the judge had already left. A clerk stared in disbelief. In a tangle of suits, she was restrained, still hurling insults. Victor hovered, torn between helping and avoiding more scandal. Mara covered her mouth. The bailiff signaled for more security. "She struck him in open court," he said. "That is contempt. She will answer to the judge." My wife spat on the floor and shook. "He used me," she cried. "He married me for money. He is the villain." I stood there with my heart hammering and saw how far gone everything was. She was lost in her rage. I was standing in my own bitterness. We had become a spectacle. Security led her out toward chambers, shouts muffled behind thick doors. Victor hurried after them, waving his hands. Mr. Bennett exhaled. I did not expect that. I swallowed. She snapped. We sat on a bench that felt like stone. My mother came over shaking. "Are you all right?" "I am fine," I said, though my voice sounded thin. Minutes later, the bailiff returned. The judge issued immediate contempt and a fine for striking you in court. She will be held briefly for processing. "They are not pressing further charges," he said, looking at me. "Do you want to file an assault complaint?" I paused. Part of me wanted to. Another part felt a bleak pity. She was paying for her own pride already. "No," I said. "The court's penalty is enough." The bailiff nodded. A few days later, she was released. Her attorneys moved quickly to finalize the settlement to prevent more noise after her public outburst. Word drifted through legal circles and reached small tabloids. She avoided serious criminal trouble, but her reputation took a hit. On a gray afternoon, I sat at Mr. Bennett's office for the final signing. Victor glowered. My ex sat with puffed eyes, avoiding me. The swagger was gone. Mara hovered and whispered to their lawyer. They slid me the final documents. A large lump sum from the $9 million and a full release of any condo claim. I signed. Mr. Bennett checked every page and handed me the pen. "Congratulations," he said under his breath. My ex signed with a hard line to her lips. Victor pushed a check across the table. "Take it. I hope you are satisfied." I looked around. My ex stared at nothing. When the last signature dried, the attorneys nodded. The deal was done. No one said goodbye. I walked out of the building with the check folded once in my inside pocket and the copy of the settlement sealed in a manila envelope. The sky looked the same flat gray it had worn on the day of the hearing. Mr. Bennett shook my hand and told me to call if anything came up during the disbursement process or the reimbursement accounting. My parents were waiting at the curb. My mother searched my face. My father gave a small nod that said more than words. We drove home in quiet, the tires humming and the city sliding by in dull blocks of concrete and glass. That night, we put the envelope in the bottom drawer of the old oak desk in my parents' study. My father made tea. We sat without the television on. For the first time in months, my hands did not shake. Sleep came without the churn of possible outcomes and courtroom scenes. In the morning, I woke before dawn and stepped outside. The street smelled like dew and cut grass. A neighbor waved from his porch. Ordinary peace felt strange in its simplicity. In the days that followed, I met with the bank to place the funds where Mr. Bennett recommended, simple accounts, while the court clerk finalized the reimbursement ledger for the mortgage and utilities. I bought a new pair of work boots and returned to the store for a short shift to help during the weekend sale. My boss clapped me on the shoulder and told me he was glad to see me. Customers came in looking for fishing gear and winter coats. I fit laces and talked through jacket sizes. Normal work steadied me. The small movements made sense when large life pieces had been stuck. I did not move back to the condo. The settlement released any claim, and I had no interest in crossing that threshold again. I looked at modest rentals on the east side and found a second-floor apartment above a bakery. Sunlight came through 2 windows in the morning. The paint was clean and the kitchen small. It was mine. I spent one weekend sweeping, wiping down cabinets, and placing a coffee mug in a cabinet like a stake in the ground. My father helped carry a borrowed couch up the stairs. He joked about the narrow hallway and then sat with me for a minute before heading home, leaving a hardware bag with screws and a tape measure on the counter. News filtered in through other people, rather than any search of my own. A friend texted that one of the tabloids ran a blurred courthouse photo with a headline that did not get the story right. I let it pass. Another mutual acquaintance mentioned that Victor had pulled back from a charity board for a while. I did not reply. Whatever storm brewed in their circle did not need me. I had signed what I needed to sign. We were done. A week later, I met Mr. Bennett one final time to pick up the court's accounting, showing the credits for my share of household expenses. He slid the papers to me and pointed out the totals. He asked if I had any questions about the tax implications, and then smiled for the first time since our earliest meeting. "You handled yourself well," he said. "Not everyone does when the personal and the legal collide." I thanked him and walked out into bright winter light that made the sidewalks look like they had been washed. I took my parents to dinner at a small family place near the park. My mother ordered salmon. My father ordered stew and ate slowly, as if checking each bite for taste he had known for years. We talked about nothing that required strategy or proof. We carried leftovers home and sat at the kitchen table with pie. At one point, my father told a story about a student who once mixed up the dates of the American Revolution on a quiz, and then came back to him years later to say thank you for not making him feel small. We laughed. I felt the small relief of hearing a story that was not about me. On Saturday morning, I drove to the lake where we had been married. The winter air above the water held a bite that stung my nose. Couples walked dogs along the path. A runner in a red cap moved past with steady steps. I stood by the railing for a few minutes and watched the water gather and slide, dark and calm. The orchestra and the cake and the speeches belonged to a set of strangers as far as my nervous system was concerned. If there was a lesson on the rail, it was about language on paper and pressure applied to people. It was also about what you agree to when your heart is louder than your head. I did not call my ex. I did not ask how she was. I did not think about Ethan beyond the surface fact that he had existed. The court had given each of us a clean edge. I kept to my side. When memories came, I let them arrive as they were, and then leave without assigning them new meaning. The weekend after the fun settled, I wrote a check to my parents for the car repairs they had postponed the year before. My mother tried to refuse. My father looked at the amount and then hugged me without saying a word. The shop replaced the old brake pads and the cracking hoses. The engine sounded quieter when he pulled back into the driveway. I changed my phone number. I blocked the numbers that had once been used to pressure me. Victor did not call again. Mara did not appear on the sidewalk. The silence of their absence felt like the lifting of a heavy coat. I did not celebrate. I did not gloat. I swept the apartment floor and wiped the counter. I bought a small plant and put it on the windowsill. I started running 3 mornings a week and cooked simple dinners with ingredients I recognized. I took a notebook and wrote down what I spent and what I earned. Numbers steadied me, the way clean lines steady a page. On a Tuesday evening, I sorted a box of old photos I had collected in the rush from the condo. Most were landscapes and snapshots from ordinary weekends. In one, I stood next to my father on a pier, holding a small fish and grinning like a child. I put that one in a frame and set it on the shelf. It made me laugh every time I passed. In another photo, my mother held a tray of pastries and leaned toward the camera as if to feed the lens. That one went on the fridge with a magnet from a roadside museum. The store needed a part-time inventory supervisor to help with the winter shipment. My boss asked if I wanted the role. I said yes, and spent a week reorganizing the back room so boots and jackets were not piled on top of each other. I found I liked making systems that kept chaos from spreading. It felt like cleaning a thought. I left on time and walked home in the cold with my breath in little puffs. I met with a financial planner for an hour to make sure I was not missing anything obvious. He explained a few accounts and a short list of choices. We kept it plain. I asked questions until I understood. I did not chase anything shiny. I walked out with a folder and a clear plan for taxes and a simple schedule for contributions. I called Mr. Bennett one last time to let him know the transfers had completed and to thank him. He wished me well and said his door was open if I ever needed a lawyer for something less dramatic, like a will. I said I would be in touch when it was time. Spring crept in, and the bakery downstairs opened the door in the mornings. The smell of bread and sugar lifted through the stairwell. I learned the names of the owners and carried a box for them when the delivery truck came early. On Sundays, I drove my parents to the farmer's market where my mother bargained for peaches, and my father stood at the knife-sharpening booth trading stories with the man who ran it. We sat on a bench and shared a paper cup of coffee. The market band played 3 chords and a melody that made children dance without being asked. I kept the prenup in a folder only because it taught me something I did not want to forget. Words matter, clauses matter, signatures matter. Pressure is not a reason to sign what you do not understand. Love is not made stronger by pretending power is not in the room. If there was grace in the whole mess, it was the chance to learn that lesson and still walk away with a life that could be repaired. One evening after work, I walked by the park near Ashfield, where her initials had once been scratched into a bench rail. The city had replaced the benches over the winter. Fresh boards held no carved names. I stood for a moment and watched the sun fall behind the trees. I thought about the boy who once believed a signature could not hurt him because love would keep everyone honest. I wished him a better question. I turned toward home and kept walking. I did not become a different person overnight. I still kept the receipts my father told me to keep. I still wrote things down when my mind felt noisy. I still checked doors twice before bed. But the fear that had clenched my stomach loosened its grip. I could breathe without waiting for a phone to vibrate with a threat. I could look ahead to a week that was only a week and not a trial. When the settlement ledger arrived, stamped and final from the clerk, I placed it in the desk beside the now quiet prenup. I closed the drawer and went for a run. The air had the first warmth of late spring. Runners passed me and I passed them. A child on a scooter wobbled and steadied, and then pushed off again. I returned to the apartment, turned on the small lamp by the couch, and called my parents to ask if they wanted to come over for dinner. My mother laughed and said yes, before asking what I planned to cook so she could bring something to match. My father said he would bring the tape measure again, just in case we wanted to hang a shelf. Nothing in that moment needed a judge, an attorney, or a clause. It was ordinary. It was enough. I set a pot on the stove and started chopping onions. The window was cracked an inch. Somewhere below, the bakery's evening crew wheeled a rack across the tile. The wheels squeaked and then quieted. I stirred the pan and watched the onions turn clear. The room filled with a small, clean heat.